This program is sponsored by Tilson Solicitors.
Assalamu alaikum, hello and welcome to another episode of the Legal Forum with me, Lee Clark. Now, the Legal Forum is a programme where each week we discuss common topics in layman terms to help guide you with legal advice. Breaking down the complex language of law, the Legal Forum will also highlight examples of real cases and scenarios from our experts. Now, please do bear in mind the views and opinions expressed in Legal Forum should be considered for informational purposes only and not case-specific legal advice. All topics are discussed in a generic nature, and it's important that you either consult with a CAB, law centre or solicitor before relying on it. Now, today's topic will be on business visas. To discuss today's topic, we're delighted to be joined by Sandeep Chandy. Now, Sandeep, who has more than 13 years of experience in the immigration sector, dealing with many clients from many different nationalities and circumstances. Some of his clients invest in the UK and come to the UK for business, where others come to the UK on family visas. And at times, some have overstayed on their visa and some of which have children. However, Sandeep will guide us through the process and share his viewpoints. Well, Sandeep, thank you very much for joining us here today. I'm going to go straight into it's something that we hear on the news, and even today as I was driving into the studios, the point system about visas and applications for visas. I know it's been around for a while, but it seems to be a new surge of this kind of point system. What's changed?
Nothing's changed. It's something you'll hear in the news all the time at the moment, especially during the general election, during the Brexit debate before that. It's about introducing a new system into the UK immigration system, which actually has been there for about 10 years.
Okay.
The talk now is about bringing a system in to match Australia and Canada and countries like that. Truth is, we've had this system for quite some time. It's not designed well for our country. It's being changed. I think after Brexit it will develop further. But we do have a points-based system already for work and business and investing in the UK.
Silly question, but what is a points-based system? I mean, if you're of a certain, I suppose, job title, do you get more points? Do you have to achieve a certain amount of points to get the visas, or what's the point system actually based on?
I think the ones that work well, Australia and Canada in particular, are countries where, at least for periods of time, they're actually looking to bring people into their own country. They're making new cities, they're opening new business, and there's an intention to allow people to come in. And then there's a target of points, let's say, for example, 100 that you need to qualify on a category. And you can make those points from a range of different things like your qualifications, your age, your previous experience, your previous earnings. All of those will factor into the points you can make. But there's a lot of different categories you can make points from. For example, with applications in Canada, they actually give you points for attending a seminar on a small new town that's been built up. And you know, there's different ways to qualify. UK system has always been different, and I don't think it will change very much from there. It's much more rigid. It's called a points-based system, but effectively it's just lines on a piece of paper. You've just got to tick every single box. If you don't, you're not going to qualify.
Is there a particular person who definitely wouldn't get a visa, and is there a particular person who definitely would? I mean, is it like certain characteristics that mean that you're definitely not going to get one, or, as I said, with money in the bank, that you will get one? Is there a criteria that you?
Well, this depends on the category you're applying under. I mean, our system's seen a lot of changes. I think that with this Conservative government, we've settled on a system now where there's a target to bring in investors in particular, and everything's being consolidated into a category now, Tier 1 investors. It's the main part of the points-based system where it's people coming into the country, setting up business and investing money here long term. If you've got the money in the bank and you meet some other basic criteria, there's a good chance you will get a visa like this. They don't scrutinise applications that much further than that. It then comes to you coming over, having money in a UK bank account and making use of it in a business in the UK. Of course, there's some exceptions. There's things like your history that they'll look at before someone can qualify, meeting an English language requirement. But it really does now come down to money, and are you bringing new funds into the UK? That's what it comes down to.
So if you've got a highly successful business in whichever country in the world, and you're wanting to open up a new chain of, let's say, restaurants in the UK, you've proven a track record wherever you've operated before, it shouldn't be too much of an issue for you to get the visas and necessary documentation?
I mean, I would say that the track record of running a business isn't necessarily that important anymore.
No.
It really just comes down to money. So, I mean,
Money.
the UK government now are targeting wealthy individuals or people with a track record who have got the funds in place where equally they can come over, run a business here, invest that money over a period of time and qualify to stay here.
Now, is there a way that, because everybody's always either looking for a shortcut or an accelerated route to getting a visa of some description, is there a way that you can expedite visas?
Yes, and this is by intention. The UK government are trying to appeal to new money, new business coming into the UK and funds remaining in this country. So the target is to make it more appealing, make it appeal more to people, is to allow them to settle quicker. The UK system has generally had two categories after which people, periods of time after which people can settle in the UK. It's either 5 years on business visas or some other categories after you've been here for a period of 10 years. So with the 5-year standard period, what they're doing is they're changing it. So someone who comes and invests money in the UK, if you invest that amount of 2 million, you can settle after a 5-year period, but you can settle a lot quicker if you invest more money. So after 3 years, if you invest 5 million, and after just 2 years of being in the UK, if you're willing to invest up to 10 million.
So as they say, money talks.
It definitely does, and it certainly does in the current climate.
What's the major pitfalls that people encounter when they're applying and making applications, shall we say, for visas? Is there a problematic area that people seem to find themselves in most frequently, I suppose?
Yes, I think the system for many years is by design being there to restrict people coming in and make it more difficult for you. And a lot of individuals will have difficulties in the application process, let alone achieving a decision and getting the visa they want. This current category, the investor category, relatively straightforward. There are particular requirements about where the money should be held, and it has to be a regulated institution. And in intention, you need to demonstrate to the decision maker that you've got to come to the UK and the business will be viable and you can actually invest this. This category is somewhat more straightforward from other categories, but other categories, for example, starting a new business without needing to have money to invest from the start, or someone who's got talent. There's a category for people with exceptional talent, or people who are promising leaders or emerging leaders. Those categories are a lot more difficult. There's a lot more hurdles to run through and a lot more prescriptive.
Does it help? Because I was reading an article just a few weeks ago that the government is trying to bring in tech geniuses and tech unicorn businesses and things like that. Is there a particular style of business or type of business genre that is more, should we say, looked upon in a better way if you're bringing it to the United Kingdom?
Yeah, changes over the last few years reflect that. The investor category is a lot more open, so it's for someone just with the funds and intention to invest the funds here. But other categories I've got to mention, the exceptional talent, it has two main strands. So it's a recognised leader, someone who's a leader in their field, or an emerging leader, someone who has promise. Now, the category requires you to be endorsed by a professional organisation, and that the Home Office are involved in that process. You apply to the Home Office, a professional organisation will scrutinise your application, see if what you've argued that it is a reality, that you do have leadership in this area or promise to become a leader in this area. And the endorsement bodies do focus on science, engineering, the arts. So there certainly is a focus now in that direction. So if there is someone out there with that sort of skill set, that's what the UK government are looking for.
So Sandeep, one of the things is with the applications, do they have to be made, do you have to come to a holding centre here in the UK, or can you make it, I would assume, online in your home country, I guess?
The whole application process has been shifted online, even documents now. Most applications, they don't want to see original documents. They'll make verification checks themselves. Now, the requirement is you normally apply in the country that you're a national of, or if you're dual national in either of those countries. But the Home Office do allow applications from the country you're resident in. So if you have a visa to be somewhere, you can make an application there.
Can somebody apply in their home country and the solicitor in their hometown?
We have had clients that have come on a visitor visa to come and see us during the application process. So as a business visitor or on a tourist visa, and spend that time in the UK with us at the office to work on the application. But with communications these days, email, video calls and Skype and phone, we help clients all over the world.
Is it frowned upon if you've said to immigration when you come into the UK that you're here on a holiday, and theoretically for the 2 weeks you're here, or month, or whatever you're allowed to these days on your current status, seeing a solicitor to have another agenda to set up a business?
The Vista visa systems also has some changes, so there are permitted activities, certain things you can do, and they're prescribed now, so it's much more clear what you're allowed to and not allowed to do. This wouldn't fall foul of a tourist visa to see a solicitor and take advice or be in the process of making an application. It's something that is allowed.
So when you've applied for your visa and you get it, how does a work visa go alongside like a residential visa? Do you automatically get both of them when you get one of them, or does work visas are an initial problem or not?
Work visas
permits,
used to be called work permits, and now they actually fall under a category called Tier 2 of our points-based system. They're somewhat different. There's certainly still a focus on those to limit the numbers and to really, really restrict who can come in or who can remain on a visa like that. There's a process of employees having to obtain a license. It's not easy at all. We have employees come to us all the time where licenses have been taken away or been refused outright. The Home Office will do visits and audits. It's a tough process. But if you do have a vacancy and you do obtain a license for an employer situation, it is still possible. If you advertise a position, can't find a worker for that job in the UK, you can bring someone in from abroad for it. There are subcategories, for example, large organisations who want to transfer their staff between their office in one country to the UK. That's allowed for. That's a bit more flexible. High earners earning over £150,000, they're more flexible. The only positive change I can say is on this front for some of our clients is that chefs are now back on the shortage occupation list. So,
really?
Restaurants now, without having to advertise a position or show they can't find a worker here, can sponsor someone to come over for that position.
So what's the hot job vacancies? So chefs, I was reading today also in the nursing profession, and doctors, they seem to be obviously expediting or really clawing out to get people to fill those positions.
Certainly. The nursing category's been relaxed somewhat, so the requirements about pre-registration, the English language ability, there's some changes there that they do want to attract nurses from abroad. Mm-hmm. The others are engineering field, some financial positions in the insurance sector. Those are the ones on the list at the moment, which are certainly easier for a worker to come over from abroad.
Now, as some people might be aware, we've had a general election recently, and whether you think it's lucky or unlucky, but third time lucky for the government, shall we say, on the 31st of January, as the Queen has announced today that the Brexit situation will happen. What happens to people who've got work visas or business visas or what they've already had in the past? Does it change on the 1st of February?
No, not significantly. I think the outcome of the election, the Conservatives getting a majority, is that the situation is a lot more predictable. The situation we've had for some years will carry on. The investor category for people to come and use their money in the UK in the business, that's going to remain. That was a Conservative idea. It's a Conservative focus in immigration. So I don't think we're expecting significant changes. I think what will change things somewhat in the next year or two is if the UK does eventually leave the European Union. It looks like it's going to happen now. There will be a reduction in European migration and there'll be vacancies to fill of all kinds. And I think that's an area where the government will make further changes for the rest of the world, including the European Union, new rules for people to come in. So I think there we can expect some things to relax.
Say you're coming from a country, say India or China or something like that, and you come to the UK on a work visa, or you've got a business visa of such. Have you previously been able to travel easily in the EU? Because obviously Britain is part of the EU, and will that change if we become a non-member of the EU?
So we have always had some controls even within the European Union. So, for example, someone who has a visa to come and stay in the UK, a Chinese national, for example, they can come and go from and to the UK. They don't have an automatic right to enter a European country unless, well, the European Union, the main member states, certainly, they're tied together and the rules are the same. So there is the Schengen zone of a number of European countries where you can apply for a visa for that group, and then you can travel between those countries, but you would need a separate visa to go within the European Union.
Now, if you're adamant that you actually fill all the right criteria, you've ticked all the right boxes, you've filled in all the forms correctly, and it comes back as a negative from the Home Office, is there any way of challenging them, saying that you want to shout about your cause, basically?
Yes, and I mean the reality is that at the moment that the decisions of the Home Office that go to the Immigration Tribunal are heard by judges and decisions are made on those cases. At the moment, 50% of decisions are overturned. So It gives you a good idea about the decision making at the Home Office. I think there has been some improvements, but the figures speak for themselves. Decisions are often wrong. In terms of it really then depends on which category you're applying under. So business visas and points-based system applications, work permits, they'll be different from, for example, family visas or a student visa or a visitor being refused. But there are different options depending on what the decision's been made. And sometimes the Home Office will spell out what you can do, and sometimes they won't make it so clear that these options are open to you to challenge the decision.
So the Home Office and Embassy decisions initially could be against you, but that isn't a final decision necessarily. What's your right to appeal? I mean, as you say, I mean, if you have a judgment, do you have particular rights? And people want to come and see Sandeep and say, right, this is the situation. What does one's rights mean to them?
Well, not all refusal decisions now have a right to appeal. The
Okay.
law's been changed over the last few years, and significant changes, really restricting when you can go in front of an immigration judge. I mean, that is a good opportunity to have someone independent where you can usually be before a judge or have someone representing you, and it was a good forum to overturn a decision, but the Home Office government have really restricted that. The normal decisions on the points-based system, business visas, investors, work permits, if the decision is a refusal one, there is an informal process of review. So it's not in front of a judge, it's not to an independent place, but another person at the embassy would look at the application again. It's called administrative review. That normally is the information of that is normally on the decision itself. There's quite strict time limits, but that's the usual process to challenge a decision made for a points-based application, a work permit or a business visa.
That was going to be my next question, actually. You preempted it really well. Time limits. How much time do you have to maybe get over the initial, say, negative decision to then hopefully correct that?
So for decisions made abroad at embassies by British High Commissions or British embassies on behalf of the Home Office, time limit is normally 28 days from the date that the decision is received by you. There can be confusion about when it's actually been sent. I mean, most things now are electronic. You get a decision by email, but 28 days is a general guideline there. Mm-hmm. Other time limits apply in different situations, 14 days for applications made in the UK. It does depend on the category again. Careful look needs to be given to the decision itself. It should inform you of your right to get a review of the decision.
When people are looking to obtain the visas, work visas, business visas, should we say, is the main thought for them to, obviously as we crossed on it, having the money in the bank to show that it is there. Do some people think that they could show the money in the bank and then kind of, when they get there and get the visas, just take the money out again and put it off somewhere else? Is it all protected going into that scenario?
There isn't as much control as you might think. It really does come down to the individual following through on what they said they'd do. But in the categories, for example, the business investor, the investor visa, if you want to get accelerated settlements, you want to settle after the 2 or the 3 or even the normal 5-year period, you do need to demonstrate the investment has occurred. There's options about how to do that. Director's loan, it can be through share capital, it could be through your expenditure in the company. So there's ways to go about the investment process, but at the end you will need to prove you've done it or you won't extend or settle in the UK.
So your new business is flourishing well here in the United Kingdom and you've done rather well, and you need certain skilled staff that you can't currently get in the United Kingdom. You have your visas, you have your permits. How easy is it for you to bring in employees with certain skill sets, shall we say, from your mother country to the United Kingdom in that case?
That will come back to what we discussed a little bit earlier, the Tier 2 work permit category. Nothing stopping a person coming into the UK, starting a business or running a business, from also getting a sponsor license. They're a business based in the UK, an employer based in the UK. They can apply for a license, be authorised to bring people over, but then you're running through the same process, the same criteria. Advertise here, show you can't find that worker here, you can't find the skills in the UK, prove the process. If you've passed all of that, then it's possible to get a sponsorship certificate and then allow that person to apply to come in. It's restrictive, it's very restrictive. We do expect changes. It's an area of change always, but it's certainly an area of change right now with the general election and what's happening with Brexit.
So people could experience possibly not an easier ride, shall we say, but certainly more welcoming open arms to bring certain types of businesses to the United Kingdom.
I think businesses, wealth, investment, high-skilled workers and shortage workers, certainly. Everything else is a different story.
As time is almost up, believe it or not already, just a quick thing, a kind of an overview. People who are applying for the visas, business visas especially, obviously, what's the key kind of set of orders they have to get in as their ducks in a line if we want to do it, getting everything ready for the visa? What's the key things they have to do?
All these cases are always about preparation. With the investor category right now, it really does come down just having the funds in a regulated bank or institution abroad, having a UK bank within which to invest the money, to bring the money over. That really is the key criteria. But preparation of the application, meeting all the small parts of the immigration rules, it just takes advice. It takes someone to sit down and put a plan together to actually put this all through.
So 13 years of experience for yourself. How often does the law change, or how quickly are things changing from, do you leave the office on a Friday night at 5, 6, 7 o'clock and come in on Monday and think, that wasn't like that?
Immigration rule changes, which is the major part of this area and what governs who can come and who can stay, they change several times a year, sometimes multiple times a year. But small changes in the process, in the procedure, in other parts of the law, every single day. There isn't a day that goes by where something hasn't changed, a policy hasn't changed, a criteria hasn't changed. It's constant change.
But for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Sandeep. Well, a big thanks again to Sandeep for a great show. And unfortunately, as I said, that's all we have time for. I'd like to thank Sandeep Chandy, an experienced solicitor who shared his experience and viewpoints on today's topic. We must stress, as always, that the views and opinions expressed in Legal Forum should be considered for informational purposes only and not case-specific legal advice. All topics are discussed in a generic nature, and it's important that you consult either with a CAB, law centre or a solicitor before relying on it. If you'd like to find out more about today's topic or any other topics we've discussed, then please do get in touch and email us at thelegalforum@islamchannel.tv. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Assalamu alaikum.
This program is sponsored by Tilson Solicitors.